You're going to have to rethink the 18 weeks, the 9 weeks, the quarter semesters. You're going to have to be like, if a kid can finish something in 3 weeks, then they can move on to the next thing.
The teachers that are going to have a lot of trouble with AI and those types of things are going to be the controlling teachers. It's such a game changer because if you're gonna be the traditional lecture, I want to control the room, AI can do that.
In order for that to really happen and like have that be the vehicle, you've got to get all of your core teachers on board with this. You had me at your school right now. There's absolutely no way I would teach chemistry, physics traditionally.
Honestly, this is the way to get I think in that narrative, I think this is the way you get 100% of your students in any course to buy in, period.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Alli, Dahl, Peter Hostrawser, Disrupt Education Podcast. We are back. Alli's got something on her head. What is that?
And a new hat.
Yes. All right. Well, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. We're right there, right? On this podcast. Still a little spicy from last week. I'm liking it. We have had Kristy, Volesky, and Jeff Frosty the snowman. Someone connect today. I'm in a good mood. We're getting salty and kind of angry with CTE, but it's a great time of year. So how are you, Alli? What's going on?
I'm good. You know, this is a perfect time of year to grab your favorite drink, and cozy up. Yeah, cozy up. Listen to this episode and this can be a busy time of year, but it can also there's that week that in between, like the last week of the year in between Christmas and New Year's, that people kind of jokingly are like, no one knows what day it is and what to do. And so if you're listening to this during that time, you're setting yourself up for, still really asking, how can I disrupt education even in a quote unquote slower period of time? And I always go back to Robert Peppo with that. And he's like, your off season is really your main season. It's like all the training and all the downtime is when you can really level up.
Yeah.
And he uses the winter time, right now, in order to make the summer, which is big food business and food truck and everything with Peppo subs, to the next level. And so even a winter break, it's a week or 2 weeks, you can spend that time to level up. It doesn't have to be a full season. A mini season works just as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give a shout out to Peppo subs. I think their guts that they put on the sandwich, I think they ship. So you're probably not going to get it by tomorrow, but I'm just saying it'd be a nice gift to have. So big shout out, Peppo subs. Take a look at that. Google that. You can find Robert Peplowski. We were a little reimaginative last week, talking to Kristy and Jeff about their book, CTE Reimagined. It was a great conversation. And it was the first time we actually talked to Jeff. Outside of doing some interviews and such around the book, and it was great. Just hearing those two kind of reminded me of great duos. Does anybody know any of those? People who bounce off of each other,
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I was thinking that during the podcast. I was in a single mind, right? And I've been seeing this so much actually online. If this is going to seem totally random, but Justin Welsh, he's a huge content creator on LinkedIn and X, and I think those are his two main platforms. But he I mean, we're talking millions and millions. I think he's an 8-figure business owner, and he's the solopreneur. He talks about how to start your own business and grow it and everything. He is talking about how right now, one in person and getting people with different perspectives than you is the superpower. And like the yin and yang of it, and like, and how people outside of your industry, outside of your field of expertise, will look at your problems that are in your field or industry completely differently. And that is so needed right now to
Mhm.
solve like unique challenges. And so even though Kristy and Jeff like are in education, they come from very, different backgrounds and like approaches to the work. And then like obviously work has taken them in different directions. But you do so much better when you have someone else to bounce your ideas off of. Like I could stare in front of the computer screen and like try to figure out how to podcast, or like me and you, we do it together, and I mean I believe it's better together. And like the network that we're building, like this whole Disrupt Education podcast and everyone who listens to it, it's better because everyone contributes.
Yeah.
And yeah, the duo thing, it it levels Kristy and Jeff up in ways that like I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah. I mean, they did talk about like how they scaled each other up into really, I mean, we joked about it with the saltiness, but I really appreciate their candidness on how they wrote the book, and because I think that's very important. I know there's a lot of manuals out there, there's a lot of educational books and different things like that. And you even said it, we do get a lot of people who, hey, check our book out. We have a lot of great books, but there's some that are just kind of all right, but I think this one, and we know Kristy very well, was just that fire to really start. Okay, we just need to stop doing this stuff, and to hear like educational leaders from their points of view who were in positions at the state and their local levels and administration to say this and do it out loud. That I think really kind of set off this kind of fire that they had about a year ago when they started writing a book. I remember when Kristy was like, "Yeah, I'm writing a book, and I'm gonna let loose on it." And then people will rightfully so, like, you always don't have to say what you think, but if you can navigate it, and I think Jeff really brought that, into the CTE Reimagined book. But man, it really kind of fired some things up and me, and really started. We were talking after the podcast last week, and I was like, I gotta hold on, I gotta hold on. I got so many of these stories and things. But how did it fire you up? What was maybe one or two things like right off the bat you're like, yo, this is something that needed to be said, or this is something that I've experienced.
I mean, the succession planning of CTE and its shift from like it's good at producing workers, but not leaders,
Mhm.
really hit home for me because I was like trying to think about, I don't come from the CTE space, so I see it differently. And like a bunch of people have been talking this year about like the issue and branding and language around CTE, and I'm like, well, I don't see it, but I
Mhm.
wasn't in it. And so like hearing Kristy talk about how there are pockets of great programs, and that's what I'm exposed to here on the podcast, right? We
Mhm.
talk to people who are doing the innovative things. I will say subbing has shown me like what CTE can be. It can be a compliance program, and
Mhm.
it's pretend play, as Kristy says, as Jeff says, and it needs to be connected to the community.
Yeah.
Uh, and that, I would say that to me really hit home in terms of what is the challenge facing that. And it's also like, what is the opportunity for CTE? Because I have never heard more conversations around like schools need to do stuff differently,
Hmm.
colleges need to do stuff differently. And this book will literally give you the blueprint for that.
Hmm.
And uh I've never seen or heard like the vision put so clearly that would help anyone in education see the power power position that CTE is in and can drive for education. Like it can be the vehicle that everything else in education like kind of centers off of in order to disrupt it. I can see that more clearly now because of this book.
Yeah, I agree. I think, ooh, man, it had me going all over the place because in my head, like I know I start spinning and it's great. There are 40 wonderful stories in here. I like the first thing that really hit me was, the blockers, right? What are the blockers? And we just basically wiped money off the map. And that's what Jeff was saying, yeah, you can do these big shiny buildings, but you don't need them. I mean, you can start with your community, and again, this is what Kristy and Jeff are always saying is starting with your community. And man, there was a harsh moment. I don't know if you caught it where Kristy was like, "Well, the reason why some of these," and she's talking to educators about like why some of these programs don't work is because of you. And then and I was like, I have there are certain ways, you have teams and different things like that. You want to say that. But for real, like at the end of the day, and we can go back to a lot of our different guests is, if you even just play in class and goof off and everybody likes you, that only works for a little while and then it just wears off. But if you're doing like real stuff, working with your community, you are making a difference. You're giving opportunities for students to shine. You're challenging them. You're raising the rigor. Then students will show up. They will show up. And I don't care if they're quote unquote great students or not. They will walk in your class. They will talk to other people, and more people will quote unquote sign up for your classes if you're doing it that way. And I always like that. I love that model. I've been in 6 different districts, Allie, and I got to tell you, when the reason why in every one of those districts we have grown our programs, it's not because of the programs and the checkbox and the compliance. It is because we built the programs around each and every student. It's funny because the joke used to be, oh, every kid has an IEP, meaning that individual education plan, right? That Jeff said. And I was like, yes, absolutely, right? My kids are different, 2 of them, right? All our family is different. So how do we then meet that student where they are? Yeah, we'll check the box. I'll check the box if I have to. I knew a social studies teacher and he was a department chair, right? That totally pulled, this is not at my school, so don't go looking at Naperville, but totally pulled the wool over the eyes of the assistant principal, because what he would do in his AP class is he would get through all the AP stuff in 2 weeks. And then what he would do is he would do projects off the books, like check the box projects. Those kids mostly got 4s and 5s on their AP test, but he couldn't tell people that he was doing that because they would be like, traditional blah blah blah. That's the stuff
Yeah.
that Kristy and Jeff are like, stop this, right? But that's the kind, I mean, that's the freedom, that's the fun stuff that we do to really make a difference. And when parents hear the fact that you're listening and working with their students as an individual and you're giving them feedback, the parents feedback, and then like, you do something like U signs or you throw an aptitude on that. I mean, get out of here, right? Like if you're a parent or if you're even in that school and they're like, hey, we're building something around you, um, that's that on ramp, off ramp. So yeah, I'm sorry I got fired up there, but I'm really fired up about. I love the fact
Thank
that
you.
this is here, and in some ways, honestly, Allie, I can't believe we're at this point. I didn't think we'd ever get to a point where some of these discussions and changes would have happened in education. They're coming
That's
slower than I'd like, but I just it's amazing to me.
that's why you're so ramped up because you should be. When you were talking, I have a bunch of this book
Hmm.
bookmarked and whatnot, but you're literally talking about what they write in the book. They say this is in I think it's like chapter 10, it's towards the end, but it's like no more silos, no more limits, and it says
Hmm.
rigor without purpose is just noise. For too long, core academics and CTE have run on parallel tracks, rarely intersecting in ways that students can see and feel. But this is where I think it really hits home. It's like the result is predictable. Students disengage not because they lack ability, but because they cannot see why the work matters. A math formula without context feels pointless. An essay with no real audience feels like busy work. Students want more. They
Hmm.
want to know how learning connects to their future. They go on to share the example with Linked Learning, which is a California initiative,
Hmm.
and everything you can read about it. But like that's the kind of stuff they're highlighting, and it's like, yeah, like it's happening now because the disengagement is at an all-time high. The
Yep.
pathway to college is broken. Probably going to talk more about that's coming up soon.
Yep.
Uh, and I do want to push back on one of their answers though, like with all of this, because we asked like, where does it start? Like, how do you like get get this happening for the
Hmm.
future? And Jeff said, I think it has to be like from the top down, like you got to get leaders on board. And I would say you got to get teachers on board
Hmm.
because if you don't know this, the biggest AI right now is not open AI. It's like it's something with education.
Hmm.
And how did it become so big? How does it has the biggest market share? It's because this guy got teachers on board to use it in their classrooms, and he made it like free or really, really inexpensive, and it completely changed teachers' classrooms. And so now like all these districts have bought it.
Hmm.
So it has a huge market share. Like I just think the untapped potential of pulling in educators is the future for CTE. And
Hmm.
I will tie that in with Jeff's awesome model that he did in Waterloo with uh, like I want to know more about that. Like I want to do a whole podcast on this, but when you've got these 16 pathways or whatnot, but students can kind of build out this IEP, so to speak, individualized educational plan for each student, especially in high school. This is really critical. They talk about this in the book. So critical in high school for students to basically just explore pathways. Maybe
Yep.
you want to lock in and you go, and so you have like a clear path, and maybe you like explore and then you switch
Hmm.
and and whatnot. In order for that to really happen and like have that be the vehicle, you've got to get all of your core teachers on board with this.
Yeah.
Like I think you move the needle by changing the mindsets of those types of teachers, and they're like, yes, I can help students in, everything related to science pathway. My
Yeah.
expertise is in science, but
Mhm.
I see how it connects to the real world. And so like I can do all of the assessments or the I can check the box for compliance for the standards in a couple of weeks, and then we can go. Right?
Hmm.
Like if you had me at your school right now, there's absolutely no way I would teach chemistry, physics traditionally.
Hmm.
It won't even apply. Like it wouldn't, it's not in my mindset anymore. My mindset is completely changed. You'd have to have a program like this, right?
Yeah.
You have to get teachers on board. Was I on board when I was in the system? At the end, I've talked about how I was
Hmm.
supposed to be part of this like completely remodeled, reimagined high school that ended up falling apart because of COVID, and it was the main driver for why I left. And so if you give this book to your core teachers, to your art teacher, your music teacher, everybody that's not CTE,
Hmm.
and you get them on board, you could really make a big change. And Dr. K earlier this fall was like, look, you have to have happy teachers, and you have to get teachers on board to really make a difference. And
Yep.
they're the biggest players for student efficacy. And so that's where I would just say I'm like the future of CTE is getting your quote unquote tradition out of the way, which they talked about, Kristy and Jeff,
Hmm.
and get your traditional teachers, the me. You're talking to me. You're talking to the Allies of the world who love school, loved it so much that they came back to teach in school. You
Hmm.
have to convince them there's a different way. You have to break that
Yeah.
tradition.
Yeah. Honestly, this is the way to get I think in that narrative, I think this is the way you get 100% of your students in any course to buy in, period.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about that student and how they relate to a subject, right? Yeah, and can it be done now? Yeah, I think with the technology advances that we have. But see, and I like how you said that because I think we've always said it. Jason Van Nuss has said it on our podcast. The the teachers that are going to have a lot of trouble with AI and those types of things are going to be the controlling teachers because there's, I mean, it's such a game changer because if you're gonna be the traditional lecture, I want to control the room, um, you know, AI can do that. Like you've got to have those one-on-one conversations. So for example, right? So in one of our classes, that last semester, had an athlete, and they were struggling with putting everything into their schedule, right? Because their internship started a little bit later. And of course, when you're a varsity athlete, your senior year, there's a lot of time change. Everything moves, right? Your schedule didn't have anything in the fall. Now in the winter, everything changed. Um, AI can suggest things and say, do this and do that. But when you have a human there, all I did the first 15 minutes of our conversation was listen
Mm.
that empathy, understanding where this young person was coming from. He had a potential injury at the beginning of the season that was scaring him and everything. Like, yeah, I guess you could program AI, but when there's a human there, and I could feel it. Like I told this person, I was like, man, that's got to be scary because this is your senior year. This is the year you're supposed to do all these things, and you're in the trainer almost every day, and then you're worried about getting your hours, and I feel you, and that's all you have to say because you listen, and listening is that superpower. But once I listened and suggested a couple of things, then it becomes different. It's not just like, okay, you put in your prompt and then, all right, this thing's telling me to do this. But I will be there to hold them accountable, right? I will be that person that is going to be that coach, as Simon and Jeff say from Leaf Lab. I'm going to coach him. And honestly, Allie, I think, I get a little emotional about it, but at the end of this person shook my hand. Like, that's crazy. Like I was like, wow, I was that impactful, and again, Scott Carr, impact, right? We're looking for impact. So I think like when Kristy and Jeff are talking about these things, it really is that one-on-one and how it relates to them. Guess what? Chemistry relates to you. History, U.S. history relates to you. Math relates to you. For crying out loud, the Asian school districts across Asia and China are built around math, right? Like that. I remember sitting on a plane, this young lady from China, and I'm sure I said this last one of the podcasts, but I asked her, I was like, what's different? You're in the United States. What's different? And she honestly said, because it was more checkboxy, she was like, well, it's kind of a joke here. And that's what Kristy and Jeff are saying. This is silly. Why do we keep doing this? I wanted to ask you a question. So, if and when you ever had like two subjects cross over
Mm.
in a course, did that ever happen? And if so, when? Because I remember mine, and it was not in high school, I'll tell you that.
Like, so me as a student, like when they
Yes, yeah,
cross.
as a student. Sorry, yeah, didn't make that clear.
Ooh. I mean, it there's nothing jumping out at me explicitly in high school. Um, that I can, like coming to the forefront of, yes, there was that it felt very isolated. Like each teacher had their thing, their spiel, they did it.
Mhm.
Um, the only thing that's coming to mind is like the whole science department would do this like end of year, which they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I've gone back and checked, but it was like 2 weeks of all these, I would say like they were more like engineering type
Hmm.
experiences. You were put on a team and
Hmm.
every day you had a different challenge or something, and it
Very
wasn't
cool.
your typical class.
Yeah.
But that was still in the realm of science.
Hmm.
That's the only thing. And it was just fun. It was the end of the year. I think the teachers didn't want to like plan anymore. So they're like, let's create these challenges that was
Yep.
like, see how high you can build something with marshmallows and toothpicks,
Right.
that type of stuff. So like
Hmm.
build an energy cart in, you've got 40 minutes and then we're gonna test it. Like they were cool design challenges, but like there wasn't any follow-up. It was just
Right.
like June and the kids are done and we're done.
Okay.
Um, so like it was fun like as a student, but
Right.
yeah, they don't even do that anymore. I
Yeah.
Nowadays I think there's more of that. Like I certainly know that that was like the whole idea of the model that was pitched when I was going to switch to this like alternative
Hmm.
high school,
Yeah.
is that it would all be interconnected. And to Kristy and Jeff's point with the on and off ramps, easy shifts to build skills, not linear pathways, we it's gonna be like you're gonna have to rethink the 18 weeks, the 9 weeks, the quarter semesters,
100%. Yep.
you're gonna have to be like, if a kid can finish something in 3 weeks,
Hmm.
then they can move on to the next thing.
Yep.
And if it we have to rethink the timeline. I think that's a huge quote unquote barrier, but
Yeah.
that's where the buy-in from everyone has to be. Like it is gonna be messy. It's
Hmm.
gonna be
Oh, yeah.
imagining, what every person, quote unquote, in the building, their role is. But this is what I'm actually excited about, because I literally was thinking about this as you were talking, Peter, is I'm
Hmm.
like, how would you get teachers on board? And
Yeah.
here's the opportunity for youth science, because youth science is like giving aptitudes for kids to help them with pathways. In order to, I think, get teachers and admin, if they did the youth science aptitudes assessments and they could see beyond their immediate skill set and what their certificate or degree said, like I'm a chemistry teacher, I'm a business teacher, you would see all of their strengths, you would
Hmm.
see all of their aptitudes, and now you can reimagine and configure how they could play for the team, because the team is like a mindset shift. If you can get over the mindset shift, and now we're all trying to help each kid find a pathway that works for them and it's not linear, I
Yep.
think you'd have a lot more buy-in. So I'm literally, this is like coming up right in real time.
You're
More
making me,
importantly,
I'm logging into my U Science right now. I gotta look like now I'm like overall fit. Like, yeah, totally. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm an ideator, like, right? Like it's on my youth science thing.
Right.
And just like every teacher has that too. And so it's like it's not just building the students up, it's building community members up, your teachers up, everybody, and showing them what they're apt at. It'd be so transformational. And you
A
could really
hundred
reimagine
percent.
so much in school, not
Yeah.
just CTE, like in education, if we just got rid of these outdated boundaries, but
Yeah.
with learning.
My mind is blown because that is like imagine that, right? Like if you turned inward and you said, okay, educators, you do your U Science as well, and you grab your aptitudes and obviously you put your interest in there and you go across. I'm literally looking at mine right now and I'm like, okay, I know I've said like technical director, manager, advertising promotion. But there's like purchasing managers, construction, regulatory. There is a compliance manager. I don't think I'd stay. I don't want that one though, because Kristy was like, no more compliance. No, I'm just kidding. Checking the box. Coach and scout, like administrative. There's a lot of management in here, which is cool, but different parts of management. It's very interesting. Um, Yeah, a lot of like energy, different things like that. So yeah, I'm thinking that like if I like would go up with a that maybe that's why we work well together because there's some science and engineering in mind. So I
Mm.
think yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. There you go. Bingo. Merry Christmas, everybody. You just got your gift.
Exactly.
That
Go
is
get.
though. Yeah, if we're going to ask the students to do it, I think we should do it, right? And I think yeah, man, that I will tell you, just to kind of go quickly back, my first time of seeing two coursework intertwine was business communication in college, and I was like, wait, I can do because I was a communications major, but I was a business minor, and I'm like, wait, there's a class for this, and we did some really cool work. We did some work around like Nike and some different things there. And even in our econ class, we kind of used communications when we built like a what was it? Mind you, it was mock, but it was for Valparaiso area where I went to Valparaiso University. Um, it was a big project of an event that we all created, and that's all we did, and we learned economics through that. It was very cool. Um,
Mm.
but to your point, I think really the school day is a blocker, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's a huge blocker for us in our internship programs, and we're figuring things out. I mean, we have to work within certain parameters and different things like that. But yeah, I'm telling you, like, tearing this thing apart a little bit and changing it up and individualizing it. It's so got me going because there are so many stories in the book. There are so many like just basically I love how they formulated the book and they inspiring student ambition. Chapter 4, bam, they go into it and then they go into a couple of different areas there. Um, the teacher part is very interesting. And I always say this, I always say this, and I'm going to say it again because I know Kristy, you, Jason, and now Jeff have had some of these conversations about when we look at discipline in a school, when you look at students who are disconnected, right? They're not connected, and they will have some behavioral challenges and or like just disciplinary things. It comes down to durable skills, period. It's durable skills, right? So if we could attach that to an aptitude at a younger age and really say, this is what a professional looks like, guess what? You're really good at this. And then you build everything around it. And when I say everything, like like you said, you bring in your PE teacher with your science teacher, with all these different teachers where now these silos break down. You can still be a science teacher, you can still be a business teacher, but I think CTE is everything.
Mhm.
I mean, it's everything. And I'm not the only one to say. I know you've said that. I definitely know Jason has said that and Kristy have said that. But it is everything. It is the future. Um, it's coming to a point where I think we're focusing on secondary education because that's where the most movement is happening quicker.
Mm.
I do agree in the elementary stages, we should still go through obviously the basics and the fundamentals, but tying in that IEP, if you will, at that point and start helping students see how their skill sets can shift on ramp, off ramp. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit here and say that I agree with everything that Kristy was saying, because that pipeline thing, I see pipelines different. I totally get what she's saying. I consider myself a talent pipeline architect, meaning that pipelines can go left, right, up, down, all over the place. But I see the connotation, and we go back to Jason's like when he uses terms and changes them up. But that's what I see it as that, and that's kind of my on ramp, off ramp. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we all have to exactly agree. but we just need success. And yeah, man, when she said, "How do we know this is happening?" and she was like, "Who cares? Like, just watch the kid grow and build them." I was like, "That's bold." That was bold of Chrissy. So I don't know.
We're coming into a bold year. I
Yep.
can feel it. And I look, their book has a lot in it. And one of my favorite things, and I think, to get at what you're saying in terms of, the vocabulary and like the terminology and everything, is that we we have to celebrate every pathway, and we have to do it publicly.
Hmm.
Like, right, so this the there's going to be words that quote unquote people don't like, and in the space right now it's heated in terms of like the terms, and like at the end of the day it doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
we're just going to celebrate kids and like their pathways and like what they choose, and like that I think is the heart of the book, is
Hmm.
that they're showing the best practices.
Yep.
They give you really good self-assessments, mistakes to avoid, next steps, they give you examples. um there's really cool stuff in what you're talking about with the levels. So they have like the early on ramp, the bridge in high school,
Hmm.
the recognition letter, many pathways, etc. Like all of that is going to help people see that this is possible.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you asked that question about like, well, what's the first time you remember, two subjects coming together?
Hmm.
Because okay, like I'm literally thinking this because this is like right around Christmas time. And right, it's pretty viral right now. This year for people to be like, ask your kids to tell you three presents that they got for Christmas last year, and you watch them struggle. And that's like me asking you, like, tell me your top three lectures from high school that you remember. There's
Hmm.
maybe one or two that you probably could,
Hmm.
but it's not likely. But if I asked you, Peter, where did you vacation in 2025? You're going to instantly answer. And if you ask your kids that, they're going to instantly
Hmm.
answer. And it's that story, like when you were sharing that story of that project and everything, I then was like, oh, I know the class in college that I took, that I had to make a radio spot for like this dental program, and it was on the radio, and it was like a health communications course. And I I guess I didn't think about it the way you just, asked the question,
Hmm.
until you gave an example that was like, oh, if I remember all of these community projects and stuff I did in college, I don't remember a single lecture from that class though. Just like I don't remember the gifts I got for Christmas last year, but I do know where I vacationed this year. Because experiences are greater than like just sitting and reading about it. That's what,
Right.
like, that's literally what they're saying in the book. They don't want to write an essay. Kids today definitely don't want to write an essay without like, where does this go?
Hmm.
Like, what's the purpose? They should question it, because it's out there enough to be like, let's just not put words on a page. Like, what's the action behind it?
Yeah.
What's the experience around it? That's what I think for 2026 and CTE and education, that's the way you can shift. And like, even if you're a practitioner in your classroom, you can connect your learning in so many different ways to real life situations.
Right. Yes. 100%. 100%. Whew. Man, I just I hope Mr. Dahl's not upset because you don't remember what he got you last year for Christmas. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Um, uh-oh. Yeah, I just opened up a can of worms there. No, just
Fine.
teasing. You know what he got you that we know. I just don't want to share it on the podcast. Anyway, no, you are exactly right. Those experiences. So that was cool. So you did main it was the class wasn't called that, but you did a marketing project and a health kind of science or dental science project
And I
together.
had and I had to do a focus group. Like I had to go out in the community and meet with people. And like
Nice.
I mean, they were telling us our problems and we had to like, take that information with what we were learning in class. It was like, it wasn't actually just a radio spot. It was a whole health campaign that we like helped them with. And, but they really wanted the radio spot, but we also
Yeah.
had to like design it and like communicate it and like go through multiple iterations.
Yeah.
It was a whole semester long thing. Yeah, that was a great class.
You were kind of a dental business owner, right? That's what Kristy and Jeff said, right? Remember at the beginning of that whole podcast last week, they were talking about, yeah, we can make plumbers and we can make
Mhm.
I don't know, accountants or whatever, but people want to sell their businesses and we don't have anybody to run them.
I know.
Bingo. That's what I love. And I think that opened up that whole conversation last week and we should like kind of close it out here with that okay, it's a yes and that is how much further should we and can we take not only CTE but education reimagined. I know this incorporates everything. And again, there are chapters, it disappeared there. It's like Halloween. There are chapters in the book that really kind of just pull it and then go. And I do want, like, I know next week we'll wrap up this year, but and kind of go into our new year. But I do want to challenge people out there. This is not easy work. It is
Yeah.
scary and you have to have guts, but who doesn't in education, right? Do we really want to be bored every day and sitting and getting and just no way, man. No way. This incorporates disrupting education and yes, you will show the public that there are mistakes made and there are things that need to be improved in your school. Perfection is the enemy of progress. So I always, and that's totally like that's a Jeff Bernstein and Simon from Leaf Lab. I love those guys, which are teaching some of our internship students. But that's what this is. This is a bold move. You should be salty. All jokes aside, you should be really, really like upset that we're still stuck and take these challenges and run with them and get some guts, peeps. Because next week we're going to wrap up the year 2025. We're going to get a little preview into a big year. Allie doesn't just get a hat for anything, so she's just like, it's a big year. I got to upgrade
Big
my hat.
year.
This one's
It's a
old,
big
so
year.
it's a big year. It's going to be a big year. But hope everybody has a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever's going on. There's probably more. I don't know. I'm missing a few, but happy holidays to everybody. Be safe. Take some time. Reflect on the year. We'll reflect next week on the Disrupt Education podcast. So for Alli, Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. We'll catch you next week. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning into the Disrupt Education podcast. If this episode sparked an idea, pushed your thinking, or made you look at education a little bit differently, well, that's the point. We're here to elevate real stories, real people, and real change within our schools and communities. If you want more conversations like this, head over to disrupteducationpodcast.com. You'll find episodes, resources, and ways to connect with Alli and I. Hey, let's keep disrupting, because the future belongs to the learners who dare to do things differently. We'll catch you next time.